Welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast. Back with another game preview. Here we've got Auburn and Houston. This game being played in Birmingham. This game is a matchup of what was almost the national championship last year, except now we've got vastly different rosters, right? Pretty much all the key players for Auburn are gone, except for Tahaad Pettiford. And then on the other side, Houston, they have, some of their main guys back, of course, in Uzan and Sharp and Tugler, but they saw Roberts leave. LJ Cryer's gone, of course. So a little bit different looking on that side, a little bit younger now. But this shapes up to be, a fun early season game. This game last year was very close, if I remember right, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't quite remember.
Houston was up double digits. Auburn came back to end up winning it by like 5.
Yeah. So, this game again, should be fun. Of course, the new era, Stephen Pearl era at Auburn. But Cody, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. Obviously, a couple teams that haven't really played any high profile games yet, but Auburn, they had a real test in their first game of the year against Bethune-Cookman, got taken to overtime, and since then they've kind of righted the ship. They've been just fine. They've kind of dominated the glass, particularly on the offensive end, and dominated the paint in general. But that's obviously going to be very tough to do against one of the most physical, athletic teams in the country, one of the best rebounding teams in the country, especially on the offensive end in Houston. And yeah, it's I think Auburn, I'll kind of just say, I think they're kind of up against it here. It's going to be a lot of Tahaad Pettiford and Keyshawn Hall, and they're going to need to find ways to create catch and shoot opportunities because they're going to have the ball in their hands a lot, trying to create. Houston loves to send 2 to the ball. Keyshawn Hall is not going to get those mid post up opportunities if he has like a mismatch inside. Like, he's never going to have a mismatch in this game to begin with, but he's not going to be able to back his man down all the way to the rim and finish there. And he's not going to be able to, get into the lane without, bodies just kind of flying at him. And, with Tahaad Pettiford in the pick and roll game, he's going to be high hedged to death, and he's going to have to make good decisions with the ball in his hands, or else he's going to get eaten alive here. And, he hasn't been good yet. He hasn't made shots, and he's 4 for 23 from 3. He has a 32.6% effective field goal percentage. He's a much better player than that, and I think he's going to be very big in the ISO game here against defenders, like really good defenders in Uzan and Sharp and even Kingston Flemings. So he's going to have to be really big in those ISO opportunities because the pick and roll game is not really going to be there for him. But for Houston, they haven't been really awesome on the offensive end yet. They're kind of working some things out. I think it's particularly with the interior offense. Chris Cenac hasn't been that efficient yet. He hasn't been like an offensive guy that you can really go to on the low block by any means. He hasn't, just overall across the board hasn't been efficient. 9 for 21 inside the arc. He's been a great rebounder, but I think they're going to need a little bit more from him. They're also going to need a little bit more from Joseph Tugler, who surprisingly has a 27.6% usage rate so far. I mean, it's just kind of skyrocketed from his past role, and he's in a way kind of taken over the Juwan Roberts role in the low post, a guy that they can throw the ball to and make a play there. But I don't think that's something that they want to do consistently. And then the perimeter offense has been pretty solid. And I mentioned Kingston Flemings. He's been awesome so far. 78% effective field goal percentage, and he's making all the right plays right now. 35% assist rate to a 14% turnover rate. He's been everything that they need in terms of kind of taking the pressure off of Milos Uzan and Emanuel Sharp as on-ball creators, because I was personally a little bit low on those two guys kind of taking over a backcourt and being high-level creators for a potential championship team. But for Kingston Flemings to be able to come in and play the role that he's playing has been pretty massive. And like I mentioned, like, the offense hasn't like completely put it together yet, but they also this isn't the team that necessarily wins with high octane offense consistently. So this is a team that's going to be just fine. And I think the biggest, like I mentioned, the biggest battle in this game is going to be on the glass. And I do think Houston has the advantage there.
Yeah, no, I mean, this Auburn team, right, has kind of played three cupcakes. I mean, granted, the Bethune-Cookman team is a little bit different than a typical Bethune-Cookman team because they have like former 5-star recruits on their team, and so it is a little bit different. But going to overtime opening night against them and playing Merrimack, and then Wofford, right? I think some of the stats that Auburn has are a little bit skewed, particularly like third on the offensive glass. They've taken care of the ball pretty well, 52nd in turnover rate. But I think this is going to be, like you mentioned, a little bit different. You're now playing the Houston Cougars, who are going to get after you, 32nd in turnover rate defense. And granted, like Houston has been susceptible in the past to offensive rebounds, but I think like they're no Wofford or Merrimack. Like they're going to be able to limit those second chance opportunities against this Auburn team. And then I think their defense really sets up well, right? Auburn has not shot the ball well from three, right? They're 266th in percentage at 28.4%, 234th in rate. So they're not shooting a ton of them. And that doesn't set up super well against an Auburn defense or against the Houston defense that's so elite on the interior, right? They're 32nd in 2-point field goal percentage defense. They just and they are 26th in mid-range frequency allowed, right? And they don't allow a high percentage there. So I just think it really sets up well for Houston to kind of put it on Auburn. Like I just don't know if they're quite ready for this game yet. And like you said, Pettiford hasn't been very good. He's got to make shots if they want to even have a chance. But I think he could just really have a tough time against this physical, really good defensive backcourt for Houston. So, if Auburn's going to win this game, I think they have to continue doing the things that they've done, which, like I said, I think are going to be difficult. They're going to have to, win the glass, right? I think on both ends, they got to limit second chance opportunities for Houston. They're going to make more shots because it's not going to be easy to score in the interior against this Houston defense. And they got to just find ways to generate better looks on the interior if they're not going to shoot it from the outside. But I just don't really see that as a true avenue. They got to take care of the basketball, right? I think those are the three biggest things I think probably that you could say for the last several years against the Houston defense is like, you have to do those things if you're going to beat them, because it's just never going to be easy. Any gym you go into and you're playing Houston, like it's a dogfight. So to me, I just don't really think that Auburn is ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a super talented team, and I think they have a chance over the course of the year to really figure things out. Like, I mean, there are a lot of very talented scorers on this team. Like Pettiford is a better player than what he's shown so far. Keyshawn Hall's been great this year, and we haven't even talked about a guy like Elyjah Freeman, who's just a freak athlete, can really make plays in transition. But then again, like Houston doesn't give up transition, and they don't give up like good looks at the rim. This is an Auburn team that so far through 3 games has a 40.8% field goal attempt percentage at the rim, which is in the 86th percentile, and they've been very efficient there, and they haven't been so efficient on the perimeter. So for Houston, I mean, it really comes down to just forcing the ball out of the hands of Tahaad Pettiford and Keyshawn Hall. Like I mentioned at the top, like they're going to kind of be doing everything. They've been the 2 highest usage guys on this team, and like I mentioned, like Keyshawn Hall is not going to get those post up opportunities, those side post up opportunities, and he's going to have to create out of those. I don't really know if I trust him as a passer overall, and I don't really trust a lot of these guys to knock down catch and shoot threes at a super high rate. Like Elyjah Freeman, that's not his game at all. He's 1 for 7 from 3 this year. He's kind of reluctant to take those shots most of the time. I think guys like Kevin Overton and Pettiford can definitely knock it down, but for the most part, I think this is a team that is a little bit more rim and transition reliant, and Houston is, the best team in the country at taking away both of those things. But on the offensive end for Houston, I think the biggest thing they need to do, they need to take advantage, I think, in the isolation game. This is a Houston team that doesn't really take the best shots from an analytical standpoint. And, this is an Auburn defense that's very switchable. So I'm going to need to see Houston, have success off the bounce, particularly with Flemings and Uzan trying to create advantages, trying to shrink the floor a little bit, and then creating some looks for guys like Emanuel Sharp. And even a guy like Chris Cenac who can space the floor, but maybe even in a pick and pop situation, they've thrown him in the corner and he's gotten some open looks there. But either way, I think if they're not hitting shots at a high clip, I think they're going to have a nice opportunity to get second chances as well, because Keyshawn Murphy might not even play in this game. He's dealing with an ankle injury. If he's unable to go, the front court takes a little bit of a dip. I know they have guys like Sebastian Williams-Adams and Philip Jovic in the front court, but I would definitely give a major advantage to Houston in the front court if Murphy's unable to go.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It'd be a detrimental loss to this Auburn team, particularly in this matchup. But for me, my game pick, I'm going to go with Houston. I think they can win this game, like I said, sort of handily. I'm going to say they win this thing by, we'll call it 13. We'll say they win 73 to 60.
Yeah, I actually had the exact same, not the exact same score, but the same differential. I had it 77 to 64. I think this is a Houston team that's going to figure it out a little bit on offense. They haven't made shots they just haven't been in like the best flow on the offensive end, and they really haven't made any shots. 28.6% from three so far, but they have some high level shooters on this roster. One of the best shooters in the country in Sharp, and I think they get right here, and their defense is as good as ever, and potentially even more talented than last year. So I expect them to take care of business.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Should be a fun game in Birmingham on Sunday afternoon, for those of you that don't want to watch football. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching the Mainly Hoops podcast.